So this is the passenger side on the right hand drive car. So you've got the power steering and the aircon and the steering rack in the way at the front. So this is the view from underneath. Here's your aircon unit. There's definitely not enough room to get through here. These hoses are in the way. So the steering rack's in the way here. This is the gap that we got it out from over here, but the alternator sits higher on that side, so you'd have to undo this air compressor, which is going to be connected to hoses. So the other option is we drop the exhaust pipe on this side. So once you get that out of the way, there is quite a big hole here. So that's only one challenge to get this side open. And there's only 2 bolts up there at the manifold. Don't have to take the oxygen sensors out, we can just unplug them here. And then there's 2 bolts here, and then there's the flange there. And that should really drop that exhaust out of the way. Disconnect the battery because the starter motor is just here. And we don't want to short out on the starter motor, so you need to disconnect the battery. Hopefully, that'll give us enough room. The manifold looks like it might be in the way and create a bit of a problem with getting the spanner in there, but... Okay, so I've given the manifold bolts there a good squirt of CRC penetrating oil. They have both cracked. So one of them you get up from this side here, and it's a 13mm socket. And then the other one you come up through here. So they've cracked. I'm going to give them another squirt. These ones have all undone as well. So I got one out. I'm using a 1/2" socket. And it's a 6-sided, not the multi-spine like this, because it was quite tight and hard to get out. These ones can round off much easier than these ones, so this is a nice tight fit. So that one came out alright. The other one has been a little bit difficult, so undoing it, it's getting tight, spray some CRC on it, wind it back in, and just work it back and forward. Work that CRC into the thread. Okay, both bolts are out. And the exhaust is hanging loose. Still just got these 2 bolts here holding it. So I've undone the oxygen sensors. You got the 2 tabs. So the cables are hanging down. However, this one here, primary, is cable tied up there, and there's a clip on the engine mount that's holding it as well. So I need to get this cable tie undone here, and then we might have to loosen the exhaust off and just let it drop down a little bit so I can get my hand up there and try and unclip the cable. Okay. Looks like we've got a ton of room now. Get my whole hand up here easy. So definitely think just dropping the exhaust off is the best thing. We'll run a tap through the 2 stud things here, through the 2 collars. Just clean those up before we put the bolts back in. That's the second bolt. You can see it was quite rusted. So we'll give them a clean up. Plenty of anti-seize. So let's try and undo this engine mount. So, can't get this one in now from this side. However, that cover doesn't have the bend on this side that interferes with getting the spanner on. So I've just got the ring spanner with the curve going that way. So the bolt is at the bottom there, like so. But we can actually get, that's a 5/8. zoom into that 5/8 ring spinner, fits on there nice. And then I'm just going to put it on there, and I'm going to get the crowbar in here and just lever it, because it's rather tight there. So I'm going to put the crowbar in here like so, and then I'm going to lever on it. Well, I have to do it with two hands because I'm going to have to hold the spanner at the same time. That's how we'll get it to crack, and then it should be loose enough to undo by hand. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the crowbar up inside the exhaust system, and then I can lever over like that to get the bolt to crack and loosen up. But I need to hold the spanner at the same time so that it stays nice and straight on the bolt head. So today we're getting it undoing it from this side, which is why you can get the ring spanner on there. Whereas yesterday you're trying to get it on the other side of the car, you're trying to get it from this side, which makes it really difficult with this extra bit here. So that's the cover out. We've got the bolt out the bottom, the bolt's out the top. I've put on the other side, I've put an extra long bolt in here so that it keeps this engine mount in the right spot, but also allows it to lift 20mm if the engine has to lift that much on this side. Let me see, yeah, okay. So right there. That's about a 50mm or 60mm bolt in there. So yesterday when I was jacking it, I was doing it in the centre and the motor was rocking over, which made it a little bit tricky. Had to wedge it. So today we're just going to go a little bit off centre. So hopefully that just lifts the motor mostly on this side and we don't get any rocking. And it looks like we'll get this one in and out a hell of a lot easier. Okay, so you got to jack the engine up a bit more for the new one. And I've just let it down, so it's just touching the engine mount at the moment. It's still on the jacks. We're still on the jacks at the moment. So we can get the bolts and that in first, so we know everything lines up properly. Check that the tab at the top there is lining up and in the slot. So now we'll tighten it all down. Okay, before we wrap this up and put the exhaust back on, which is really just the reverse. That's the one we took out yesterday. Look how distorted this cover is. This is the one we just got today. Oh my god. Look at that. That was falling apart. That one was ready to break. Holy shit. Sits in the car that way. Yeah. That was ready to break. 133,000 Ks. That's the passenger side. On a right-hand car. On a right-hand drive car. So the cover's all cracking as well. So I'm going to just give these bolts a wire brush. I'm going to run the tap into the, should be just a normal M8 tap into the manifold. Clean the threads up on there and then put it all back together. So we're just going to run an M8 tap. It's just a standard M8 tap up here and just clean these threads up. So conclusion, before this gap here at the front sump on the cross member is your steering column, here's your radiator. Right, this cross member at the front here, the front sump, that there was about a 4 or 5mm gap before with the old engine mounts. So I can quite easily get my fingers in there, which is about a 13. My fingers can do about a 13mm gap. So that must be about 18mm. Okay, it's all back in. So what I did is I got just had these two bolts holding it to start with, just loosely. And then you can move this around, get your cables back in and get them cable tied where you've got a bit of movement here. And then the first bolt you can reach up into here and get the bolt on this side first, easy with your hand. This side you can't get with your hand, but get that one in first, wind it in a little bit, and then you can get this one with an extension socket. So you do that one second, and then just wind them up nice and even, torque them up, and then just tighten up the rest of these and have those in so everything's lining up. So, ready to start the car up. So one final check with the engine mounts is, now that the new one's on here, when you shake the motor, when you grab the motor and you give it a shake, you can actually see a bit of movement in the motor. She was sitting solid before. There's a little bit of flop there now. So good engine mounts will have a little bit of play in them.